survival. We cannot allow this to go on. Now, I think this is the way the revolution will start. We're on Revolution Radio, I see here.
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm a revolutionary. And America was formed in violent revolution. And the shot heard around the world didn't hit George III in the head, because he was over in England. It hit one of his thugs here in Boston, of all places. So it's going to have to be that way again. We're going to have to start the revolution against the Jewish government by taking on its thugs. That's just, that's the way it's going to have to be, because I don't think we're going to get an army to destroy and burn down the Federal Reserve Bank in New York, or the Council on Foreign Relations, or the Anti-Defamation League right now. But we have to start this in a self-defense method against these brutal cops at every opportunity. Every opportunity. We must look forward to it. We have to change our ways. We have to start thinking like men and Americans. Americans haven't exactly covered ourselves in glory. But now's our chance to become good Americans, for maybe the first time in like 238 years, since 1775. Now's our chance. We've got to redeem ourselves after Boston. That was a horrible disgrace. We just can't allow that ever to happen again.
Now, one of the things that I recommended, and I tried to start something like this when I lived out in the middle of nowhere, because I don't know if you've ever met or read Richard Kelly Hoskins. He says that the foundation of every civilization is the self-sufficient family farm. That's basically what they were trying to accomplish in Waco, people working together. But I've said that whole, and I call that concept, what I wanted to develop in Bingham, New Mexico, was Liberty Village. A central restaurant, meeting hall, and low-cost structures that people could live in and work together in, like veterans, for instance. And the more I thought about it, with what we've got education available to us on the internet. Timothy Bible College, Little Red Schoolhouse. You can go through high school, never walk into a classroom, like Columbine or like Sandy Hook. And this could be done in a neighborhood. Now, I've just contacted a landscaping company that's going to help here in Corpus Christi, go into a neighborhood and see if the neighbors would like to convert their crabgrass to a garden, and we can help them do that. And it's based on a film I just saw about the food co-op in Oklahoma that's working marvelously. It's working very, very well. They've got thousands of people signed up for it. Hundreds of farmers growing non-genetically modified food, without the built-in poison. And anytime these communist countries have been set up like the Ukraine, they ended up starving people. If they cut our gasoline off or the diesel off to our trucks, people start starving. The supermarkets will empty in a heartbeat. And we'll have total chaos. And of course, that's what they want. They want the chaos. What about that? Is that a step?
That's a fine idea. We had a similar thing here. A bunch of organic farmers had a huge gathering just south of here in northern Utah, and having all their organic meat and vegetables there on display, and a big picnic and all that sort of thing. And it was invaded by the Food and Drug Administration, and they arrested many of the people there and ordered all the meat to be soaked in kerosene and all the organic vegetables to be destroyed by this woman, FDA dictator, somehow was allowed to live in this confrontation. These people, of course, were peaceful farmers, like what you're talking about. And I'm saying, well, even a peaceful farming get-together has to be ready to defend itself from these monsters. And I mean, she should have been soaked in kerosene and set on fire, as an example. So, and what you say is a wonderful thing, but it is threatening Monsanto. Monsanto will not allow this kind of thing without police brutality. So we have to be ready, even in that situation that you're talking about, to kill these vicious thugs who are working for the corporations, Monsanto. And
part of the thing is, JB, it goes. People, if you see it on television, it happens somewhere else. It don't happen to me. It don't happen to me. I'll be all right as long as they leave me alone. And if you start getting radical, you start listening. They start listening to people like you and I. Then they get scared. They're going to be threatened. I think we need to bring the war right down to the neighborhoods instead of having them attack an isolated farm like they did in Waco in Elk, Texas, outside of Waco. That's where the Branch Davidians lived, and they'd been there. A church had been there for 50 years, folks, and then they attacked it. BATF killed 17 little children to save them from a child molester. That's what the press tried to tell you. But if we did these neighborhoods, if we went to one block and brought the country to the city, and each one of these neighbors, they might not have to get out in their backyard and work. They could subcontract that out, but it would bring it into their neighborhood. So if they come in and try to take their neighbors out, maybe the neighbors would band together to protect their neighborhood. I mean, we kind of have to think about the logistics on here. An army runs on its stomach, so we need the food. If somebody is a hunter and he's there to protect his neighbor, somehow we can get beyond the divide and conquer that they try to. That's the way they work on us. I'm a Republican. Well, I'm a Democrat. Well, I'm a liberal. Well, I'm a conservative. My ass, you're American. You're people. That's the problem we got to overcome. We've got to get people to understand. You're not just standing up for yourself. You're not being a radical. I'm not trying to better myself like Alex Jones here. I'm trying to protect my whole neighborhood.
Yeah, speaking of neighborhood, we had an interesting thing happen here 3 weeks ago. We don't have, we're in the Teton Mountains in Idaho, but our closest neighbor and my wife were very good friends. My wife, while I was down working in California, I'm out of the state 2 weeks out of the month. My wife had some missing medication here in the house, and so did our neighbor. So I got home and they were talking on the phone about 10 o'clock in the morning, and they were disconnected. Neighbor lady called to say that she was very upset that one of my wife's bottles of medication, blood pressure medication, she found it in her stuff down in her couch. So she was kind of freaked out, and she called Robbie, and they were disconnected. And then, as they were trying to call each other back, Jenny, I'll call her, she got connected again and said, "My God, I just went downstairs. There was my downstairs door is always locked. I felt this cold draft. I went down there to see what was going on, and the door was open. Looked outside, and somebody had thrown a gallon can of flammable fluid against her house, and it was burning. And so she went out to get the water. She tried to fling it away and burned her fingers, and went to the garden hose, which was always connected, and it was disconnected, so she had to get that going. to put out the fire. So she called us. We went right down there to help. She called her husband, who was out of town in Montana. He said, "Well, you better call the sheriff." So the sheriff came about 45 minutes later, and after he kind of investigated, looked around a little bit, he took her outside and said, "Do you know who those people are? Campbells?" She said, "Yeah." "Well, I mean, you know what he did back in February, the speech he gave about gun control?" "Yeah." "Well," he said, "I think that somebody was sending you a message. They're probably not the best kinds of neighbors to have." So, in other words, he knew what was going on. And she didn't tell him that for the past several weeks she'd been followed around here by a white SUV with blacked out windows, which were pretty illegal. The next day, she was followed by this white SUV again. She got behind it and made the license plate and called her father, who has some stroke with the feds. And he ran the license plate, found out it was the FBI in Jackson. It's just over the mountains from us. So now we know who threw the firebomb at her house. It was the FBI, America's #1 terrorist organization. So this is the kind of thing you got to be ready for.
Okay,
anytime.
We've got a caller on the line. Let's see who we got. Who do we have here?
Hey, Clay. How you doing?
Good, sir. Who we got?
Yeah, this is Guy from Tejas.
Great. Nice to see you here, Guy.
Yeah. Hey, JB. I don't want to shift the gear from where we were at before, but what I wanted to meet up on was what you said. Clay, you were off the line at the time, but I do believe, correct me if I'm wrong, JB, your response was, again, my words, trying to remember how you said it. Forgive me, it's not exactly the way you said it, but generally, if they push, we push back. If they fight, we fight back. If they kill, we kill them. Is that pretty much what you were saying?
JB, you there?
Yeah. I said that about sums it up. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Okay, so
Yes.
now let me ask this panel, because both you gentlemen, are greatly my superiors when it comes to this subject of the military. So if we understand that this is not just current history, this is the history of mankind, this government is basically a military government. The whole structure from top to bottom, even down to the sheriff, it's all based in military. So to try to fight that, isn't that what the whole structure is set up for, is to where it is to thwart any form of rebellion? Therefore, can't we just use our minds and our wills and redirect our energy rather than working for corporations and taking their payoffs, which is their retirement checks? You see what I'm trying to say? We've got to move and make the change within, and then they'll see the change, and they won't go after the corruption and protect it anymore.
Guy, I appreciate what you're saying, and I'll let JB respond to you, but how you do that is basically exactly what I've done, what Jack McLam tried to do. What I tried to do with the Free American, I printed the Free American magazine, and I sent it to every congressman, every law enforcement person out there. So when the FBI listed me in armed and dangerous, I called up the chief of the New Mexico State Police. He said, "Clay, I've been listening to your radio show. I've been reading your magazine for the last 10 years. You have no problem with me from any of my men." And that's what we need. This is what we're doing with Revolution Radio, what we're doing, what I've done with the Free America is so important, because we can influence the police, and we can influence the oath keepers. We can influence the sheriffs out there to get them to do the right thing. I mean, it's like I said on my intro there. You know, we both took the same oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And it's a matter of education because the Jews have the control of the media, of the ABC, NBC, of the movies, of Clear Channel, and that's why they get to program the population. We've got to have something to finance that. That's why you need to support this radio station. That's why you need to support people like J.B. Campbell and me. The only thing we exist on, the only thing this radio show exists on is donations. And the American people donated $1 billion to the Republicans and Democrats who were running for office last year. All of that money went to the Jews and the media companies, Walt Disney, ABC, NBC, and, you know, CNN. Ted Turner's Kill 'Em All, let God sort 'em out, CNN. JB, do you want to comment on that?
I don't think technically we are set up as a military structure. Is supposedly civilian control based on the Constitution. Now, I must say, and I'll always say it, that the Constitution is not what we think it is or what it was. I mean, it's dead. It's dead now, but it was always, from the beginning, a trick. It was a 7-part program on how to run a central government. It was not what we signed on for, supposedly, after the Revolution, which was the Articles of Confederation, perpetual union between the states. It didn't provide for a central government or any way to tax us or go to war. The whole idea was live and let live. These 13 new states, they could meet in Philadelphia or New York or Washington eventually, but they weren't given any power to do anything. Well, Alexander Hamilton was an agent of the Rothschild Bank of England, and he persuaded Washington that we needed a privately owned central bank called the First Bank of the U.S. and to enforce that, we needed a central government. And the Federalists gave us this central government with this Masonic Constitution. And it became a monster very quickly. And Patrick Henry, one, was appalled at the idea of this deceptive Constitution. He fought it like for 3 years and finally gave up. But then, 4 years later, he and some others insisted on a Bill of Rights to protect us from the Constitution, which we didn't need under the Articles of Confederation. Didn't need a Bill of Rights. Every state had its own Bill of Rights. But with a federal government, you need a Bill of Rights against it. And that's the basis. The Bill of Rights is in conflict with the Constitution. And the Supreme Court, which was provided by the Constitution, always sides with the central government against the Bill of Rights. And that's why they've been eroded until finally you could have a Patriot Act or a National Defense Authorization Act, and the Supreme Court says fine. I mean, where's our protection? There's no protection. It's a scam. So we got to overthrow the whole thing.
Right. I agree.
Okay, so your idea is fine, but you have to be willing to fight. You have to be willing to kill to defend yourself, your loved ones, your friends, your pets, your car, your house, whatever. They'll take it all. So we have to be willing to do what our founders were willing to do back in 1775. We got to stand and fight at some point, and that could be at a traffic stop. It could be at a home invasion. It could be at the grocery store. You know, you just never know now.
Well, they've started it for us. It's called a neighborhood watch. If we expand on that and use what they've already created here, if we can, you can certainly turn your backyard into a production house. I've seen people generate a heck of a lot of food from a backyard.
But Monsanto wants that outlawed now. Monsanto is trying to outlaw any kind of backyard farms and organic farming. I mean, they killed the honeybees. Even Vladimir Putin has reportedly claimed that Monsanto's destruction of the bee population is an act of war. So we're up against some ruthless bastards. We have to be willing to kill them because they're killing us. It's all defensive, but we just got to wake up, smell the gefilte fish, and be willing to defend ourselves from these monsters.
And all I would like to interject, gentlemen, is what we have as reality that we can mirror or use as an example. We have the Amish that clearly have a form of government that, you know what I mean? So if we could reformulate, get to the local level, give it these 70 families, you know, and then unincorporate our cities, you know, just have people that are willing to put their everyday resources into that lifestyle and be willing to work forward to get a court system, whether what state or whatever, but to get us, you know, to leave us alone. Let us to start to live separately from...
You're right, you know, you're absolutely right, but they're not going to leave us alone. And we must be willing now and ready to kill anybody who would come pour kerosene on your meat. You know, this is what happens in this country now. The FDA pours kerosene on organic meat so you can't eat it. They order you to do this at a picnic. Well, no, we can't go on like this because people are passive. We have to authorize them. We have to authorize them to fight and defend themselves. This is a mental game. The Jews and their psychiatrists and psychologists and their Hollywood, they have kind of messed our minds up, so we don't want to defend ourselves. You know? So we men have to say, no, we have to defend women and children. We have to defend ourselves, you know, way of life. The things you want to do are absolutely great and legitimate, but they're not going to let you do it unless you're willing to kill them. Then that'll give us some breathing space because they'll go back into the woodwork for a while. But we have to overthrow the system.
But using the analogy of the Amish, the court systems could have, for the last 130 years, went into their domains and given the same pressure that you're describing. All I'm saying is there's got to be a fair balance. And on your point, at the back end, I agree with you. The worst scenario in defense is, yes, to defend lives. So I'm not going to jump and say that first. I'm going to say, yeah, that's going to be the eventual defense that you have to do.
That's where you're wrong. That's where you're wrong. That's where you're wrong because it has to be the first thing to do. Everybody wants to put it on. You talk about the Amish, Quakers. I mean, these people are pacifists. They will never defend themselves. You know, they're martyrs. They got this crazy Christian martyr thing. They will not defend themselves. They're peaceful. They're very productive. Yeah, they're great, but they won't defend themselves. We have to put defense first, not last. Everybody's looking for a peaceful, procedural, safe way to deal with monsters, and there is none. You have to put the willingness to kill first. Otherwise, you're not going to have any of these dreamy ideas. And they're good ideas, but they're dreamy because Monsanto is ordering the FDA to pour kerosene on organic meat. That's what we're up against. You can't allow that. That's the number one priority is to kill anybody who would destroy your stuff.
I hear what you're saying, and I totally agree, but what you're describing is a bigger monster coming along to kill the monster. So once you get rid of the old monster, now then what are you going to have now?
Well, you can't apparently discriminate between aggression and self-defense. So you can't equate the two. Once somebody aggresses, once somebody attacks you, all bets are off. You're allowed to do anything. You're not allowed to hit it first. But you can damn sure hit second and hit harder than you got hit at first. That's the whole secret to survival.
All right, listen, Guy, I appreciate your call. I appreciate your call. And protect yourself, I think we have to figure out a way to work together. We have to put some of our differences on the side. You know, if somebody's coming in to arrest you for a victimless crime, you know, you're facing life for something plant you got in your pocket. You know, that was the start. As far as I'm concerned, the war on drugs. You know, and the war in Vietnam and all this. This was started by a traitor, LBJ, in this. Possibly Nixon. I'm not a crook that was in there too. I mean, all of our presidents have been working for the banks, haven't they, JB? I mean, if our government has been totally subverted here to a one world government of the bankers, by the bankers, and for the bankers, that means the FBI, the CIA, and the Army are all controlled by the bankers, and that's why they're trying to label constitutionalists and militia advocates or freedom advocates or anti-government advocates as somehow the enemy. That's what they're. And the only way we've really got to you're actually using more than your guns here to fight these people, because your articles, the article you just wrote about the IRS, is an important part in securing the minds of the other people here.
Yeah, while you were disconnected, the fellow we were just talking to and I were talking.
Yes, sir.
And I was talking about Brandon Robb, because I just can't stop talking about him. I think this is the most frightening, the most sadistic thing that I've heard of lately. And that we just have to concentrate on this, what happened to him. This ex-Marine who was barbecuing in his backyard, and next thing he knew, the FBI, the Secret Service, and the local cops showed up and said, the FBI said to him as he answered the door, Brandon, you know, we've seen what you put on Facebook, and we're worried about you. And naively, he immediately began to try to justify what he had said. He did put some provocative rock and roll lyrics and some ideas about 9/11 and maybe the war that he'd been part of over in Afghanistan and Iraq. And the local cop got impatient, knocked him down, put the cuffs on him, and they stuffed him into a squad car, and the FBI leaned in through the window and said, "You're not under arrest, Brandon. We're just worried about you." And they took him off to the VA psych ward. He got a quick evaluation by some quack, and who ordered a 30-day psychiatric evaluation. And 5 days into that, another quack came to him in his cell. He said, "Brandon, I'm going to brainwash you." And Brandon said, "You're what?" "I'm going to medicate you forcibly." But luckily, his mother, Brandon's mother, had gotten John Whitehead and the Rutherford Institute in Virginia to intervene, and Whitehead got a court order the last minute, got him out of there. And he avoided this chemical lobotomy. Now, what had he done to deserve this? Well, he was a veteran. And apparently, the veteran is the most hated enemy by the Jews now. Dianne Feinstein, for example, speaking in the United States Senate, said that all, and I say again, all veterans are mentally ill with PTSD and therefore must not be allowed to own guns. Now, did any Jew anywhere in America say, "Oh my gosh, that's not right. And Senator, how dare you say such a horrible slander against veterans?" No, not one Jew contradicted her. They let that stand. It was not successful, but this is the Jewish attitude towards veterans. They are the number one threat. So we must use that. This is a gift. Feinstein gave us a great gift. If we use this and show the Jewish attitude towards veterans, that means when you're in active service, you're great because you're killing Jewish enemies. You're killing the Muslims by the millions. And you're wonderful. You're lionized. You're to be respected. But as soon as you leave the service and you're a veteran, then you're mentally ill and must be disarmed. This is Jewish attitude wrapped up in a nutshell.
Now,
So
let's talk about a mass murder very quickly here, because not only is he bragging about it and talking about the killing of 1,600 people, he may be getting book contracts or something. Certainly not in jail like, they're not trying to brainwash him like Brandon Robb. This is one of the drone pilots. Are they still members of the military, or are they just taking civilians and letting them kill foreigners? And the drones, you got so many drones in America right now, flying out of Albuquerque, flying out of all kinds of places. And that may have been what was used against Monsanto, somebody that was suing Monsanto, that fertilizer company in West Texas. That could have easily been a missile strike from a drone, just like they've killed Americans with overseas. What about that, JB?
Well, as we know, anything is possible now. I mean, my wife was hit by a drone here back in August, and has been suffering lung complications ever since the drone was outside our window here. Apparently sprayed her with something, or radiated her with something. It's stumped four other doctors and 2 lung specialists. They have no idea what it is. So yes, they're using drones against us. We just don't know the extent of it yet.
This is one of these little helicopter-style drones.
Yeah. Here it was at nighttime. We didn't have the blinds on our window, and the window was open. And we could hear this outside the window, and she got up from the desk and went over, and the next day she became, looked as if she wasn't going to make it. It was a very, very serious disease that she had. So luckily she's found someone who can help her. And I mean, she's a doctor, and these other doctors just look at her like she's crazy. She had an MRI and found out there was scarring of the lungs. Well, she never smoked, or she had no reason to have scarring of the lungs. But this is what happened to her, and this is what happens to people like our neighbors right down from us that got firebombed by the FBI. These are things that are going on now in this country. If you make any meaningful attempt to stop them, but we just got to keep it up. We just got to keep hitting on them.
The Jews are still pushing for more hate crimes here. You know, they wanted, so just like it was in the Soviet Union, it was a capable offense to point out that Lenin or Marx were Jewish. And when I say capable, I'm talking about putting a gun to your head and pulling the cap.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
the death penalty for criticizing Jews. Yeah.
That's right. It was there, and it's happening now. I mean, who have we been attacked by? I mean, it was the ADL, Southern Poverty Law, Paul Pantone, who invented the GEAT system and marketed that for years. I met him over 25 years ago. They've recently, Southern Poverty Law put out an article in their intelligence report trying to demonize him for giving you double your gas mileage off of the same gasoline.
As I say, anything you try to do that's positive and saves money or is helpful will be destroyed by these guys. So we just have to be ready to defend ourselves, and that's my main message. I think the revolution will start if enough people start fighting back against police brutality and federal brutality. We just can't accept it anymore. We can't tolerate it at all. We must have zero tolerance for intimidation now. And that's how we're going to take this thing back. You just got to be willing to stand up and fight at the drop of a hat. Now, because look, here's the deal with Brandon Robb. Brandon Robb, even though he was an ex-Marine, he didn't have any guns at home. And that may be a funny thing, But as I say in my talks, maybe he got a belly full of guns overseas, working for the Jews, and the things that he did. Maybe, who lost his taste for guns, I can understand it. But today I must ask him, if I ever had a chance, what would you do the next time if the same thing were to happen to you again and you were looking at a chemical lobotomy? Now, remember that his attorney was told by journalists and veterans groups while he was trying to get his client out of the psych ward that an average of 20,000 people a year are picked up, just like Brandon Robb. Some are released and some are never heard from again. That's just in Virginia. 20,000 people a year go to the psych wards. Hey, what did Brandon do? He did nothing. He didn't threaten anybody. He was just horsing around on Facebook. But the feds were reading it. I mean, the NSA thing, obviously just the tip of the iceberg. If they're looking at Brandon Robb's Facebook, things that was private between his brother, his sister, and his mother, my God. So, I would ask him, what would you do next time? And I would ask anybody, what would you do if you were in Brandon Robb's place? Well, here's what you do. If you see more than one car roll into your place and a bunch of strangers get out, you better start shooting. Because they're going to get you. They're going to take you to the psych ward and you're going to disappear. The NDAA authorizes this now. So just ask yourself, what would I do? If I were in Brandon Robb's place, remember, he really got a chemical lobotomy. He could have come out of there a stranger, not knowing who it was, wondering what the hell happened, or maybe never come out at all, because the Jews consider veterans to be public enemy number one. So let's get the veterans going on this thing. They know how to shoot.
I agree with that, and that's certainly who we're going to be trying to attract here. And let's see here. Do I have somebody here on the line from 206 area code?
Not on our, not on this station here that I see, Clayton.
I'm talking about on Blog Talk Radio. I've got an 803 area code here in my whole segment.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, this is Eric. I think JB knows me. I sent him a lot of letters from South Carolina. I'm a veteran, a Marine, welfare there, and I was just want to let you guys know that what JB is saying is that our mindset has to change. We have to, I guess, get away from this violence as a second option mindset, because that's what they're counting on, that we're not going to go out and drop the hat, and that's when they get a button on. We can't do any of these farms or any of these things if we're not prepared to defend it. And once we get into that mindset that, hey, you know what, we know what you guys are up to, we're on to you, and we're willing to shoot, they might give us a breathing space to build all these other things to defend ourselves. And I always tell them about what I think about what's going on and stuff, but what happens to some of my brothers, for instance, if these guys are just getting more brazen and they're just openly killing people without any kind of trials or anything like that, what do you do against something like that? Being peaceful and building farms and just waiting for something to happen doesn't really scare them, and I'm all for the farming idea, and I think we need to be able to protect ourselves and be able to farm our own food and all that stuff. But I think, first of all, everybody's got to get into the mindset that we have to fight these people when they come for us.
Everything I planned.
And hello, JB.
Hello, Eric. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
yes.
everything I ever planned.
Right here.
Everything I ever planned for Liberty Villages included veterans, taking care of the veterans, and having them there to take care of us and to defend us if things get too rough. That's if we don't work together, they'll surely hang us alone.
Yes, and I definitely, because I look at these politicians on TV now, and they're openly advocating, let's go to war here, let's go to war there, let's kill this person, let's do things like that are completely not even, I don't care about the Constitution because of what JB said about how it's just designed to favor them in the first place, but our Bill of Rights, we don't care about that anymore. regular people don't really understand what's going on and don't really pay attention to how they're advocating murdering people.
Well,
With no trial,
that is
nothing,
exactly
you know.
why I do this radio show, to reach the average person, to let them know they're not alone out there. There are people that are trained to defend themselves, that are trained to think in the proper manner. I mean, we're in a war. We're in a war here, folks, and you better listen to your veterans. Listen, thank you for calling in. I sure appreciate it, bud. Thanks for listening. Tell everybody about the show. You got the link here to the
I
show.
will.
Do that. Thank you. Now, JB.
I definitely will.
Thanks, sir. Jim?
Yeah, let me let's tell them about your website again. And it's folks, you know, if you support the people that are trying to get this, this is what the importance of this show, of this website, of Revolution Radio. You know, I have guests on that are telling you the truth. I'll have Dr. Carly on tomorrow. She'll tell you about, do not take a vaccine from these people. They want to kill you. This is what is happening now, and we are trying to get you the right truth. JB's link is up on my website. You know, my shop.freeamerican.com is up on my website. We need your support to keep this going. God bless you all. Thanks, JB. Appreciate the call.